Hey everybody, and welcome to Dweeb Reviews Loki Episode 3, Lamentis. It's me, Mitch, joined again by Cole. How's it going, Cole?
Going all right. How you all doing?
Doing well, dude. Doing well. Still excited about this episode. A little change of pace when we compare it to the last two episodes, just in the general direction. They,
Yeah,
you know,
shift gears completely.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
the first two episodes built into the mystery of who is this villain. There's the reveal, obviously, at the end of the last episode, and then like a deep dive into the character in this episode. I didn't quite expect to get as much as we did as far as character building of Sylvie, who, it's
something
obviously
like
there's
that.
some things that we still don't know about her,
A
exactly
lot of
how
things.
much. Yeah, that's true. Exactly how much her path diverts
Yeah, but she didn't
from.
get she didn't get into talking about her life too much, other
No,
than
just small things, but enough that we know, okay, this is like a big difference between Loki and Sylvie. But we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Once again, just the two panels here. This
Hmm.
panel and this panel shows that it's just the two of us today. Michael was not able to join us, but he did actually submit a very brief review with his feedback and his questions for us, which we're going to play right after I do a really brief recap. So to recap the episode, just so everyone's on the same page, even though I hope you guys watched this already, it starts off immediately where episode 2 had left off, which was Loki fleeing from the TVA agent, specifically Agent Mobius, into the
Hmm.
open portal that Lady Loki had left behind. They end up
Hmm.
back at the TVA as Lady Loki, who will become to be known as Sylvie, and we'll just start referring to her as Sylvie here, is leading an assault to find the timekeepers, which we find out a little bit about the timekeepers this episode. Not a lot, but a little bit. We'll talk
Hmm.
about that later.
Hmm.
Um, we get some cool fight scenes. You get some brief flashbacks that kind of reveal how Sylvie found out exactly where the timekeepers were.
Flashbacks? I didn't see any flashbacks.
Yeah, this is a joke? You joking?
No. What
Yeah,
flashbacks?
flashbacks between her and the
Oh, like
TVA
right in the
agent that
right in
she
the
had
beginning.
kidnapped.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So so you're seeing flashbacks just so that it kind of explains how she knows where she's going in the TVA. And then Loki appears in TVA. They have a brief little fight where he's blocking her from the golden doors that conceal the timekeepers.
Hmm.
And then they're essentially confronted by TVA agents and they have to flee. They flee together using where Loki uses Sylvie's time travel device that she stole from the
Hmm.
TVA. And
Which
they
is
end
another
up
Armageddon.
yeah, they end up on the moon of Lamentis as it's facing total annihilation by colliding with the planet that it orbits. And as we know from the last episode, this allows them to hide from the TVA from being tracked. But they kind of end up in a bit of a jam when it's revealed that Loki broke the device. So now they are on a moon that is about to collide into the planet it orbits, and
Hmm.
they
And
don't
their
really have a way off.
and
Now,
their Plan C just blew up the
yes,
Ark ship. Hmm.
that's at the end of the episode, you mean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So before that happens, it's just a lot of character building. We get to see kind of Loki act a little weird because it's not yet been revealed that he broke the time travel device. Um, it's he gets drunk. They're talking to each other. They kind of talk about their lives and their histories. And here's where we get the feeling that, all right, the showrunners want us to understand that Sylvie is a very different character from Loki. We had talked about this in the previous episode, you and I, that
Hmm.
based off what the TVA described as being the sacred timeline and how all these variants occur, this should be the same Loki that we already know, just at some point in the past had diverted off from the
Right.
main timeline, or it's a future version of the current Loki that we have.
Yeah. And
Instead,
with that theory, it's only possible if she becomes a variant when she's like 5 years old or something.
yes.
Okay.
Instead, it seems to be a really big variation, which is kind of It's kind of contrary to the premise they had set up in the first episode. I don't know if
Right?
it's the TVA was lying, but this almost seems like a multiverse Loki. Like, oh,
Hmm.
it's an alternate reality where all these things are different. And that doesn't really match up with what they said that the variants were from the sacred timeline. Now the Marvel comics do have a multiverse, and there's
Right.
hundreds and thousands of different universes that are all kind of similar and kind of different. Maybe that's what they're trying to establish here. I'm not
Hmm.
quite sure, but
Because Sylvie did reveal that the TVA has been lying, or at least
yes,
not the TVA, but the head honchos, the
yes, that and
space
that the
lizards, whatever they're called.
the timekeepers.
Right.
She reveals during their conversations that all of the humans that work for the TVA are actually variants of real humans in the sacred timeline, and they are all brainwashed to believe otherwise. They believe that they were created by the timekeepers specifically to work for
Yeah.
the TVA.
And that the timekeepers themselves are variants.
Yes,
Hmm.
at least that's what it sounded like. It sounded
Yeah.
like she said that the timekeepers were variants, but that
Yeah.
it could be some confusion because she said that as she was talking about all the humans being variants. So I'm kind of
Mm.
holding off on that just to make sure it was clear because I actually
Yeah.
watched it with subtitles and that part was not
Huh.
particularly clearly articulated.
Yeah.
But
From that scene, I got that she was referring to the timekeepers as variants. But um,
she did mention in the
she could.
previous line though specifically the TVA and not the timekeeper. So that's
Uh,
That's why
yeah,
I'm not sure,
you could
but
be
we'll
right.
see. You
Yeah.
know, it's only the third episode in. I imagine
Hmm.
there's going to be. Dude, I should check because I thought there was going to be 8 episodes for Winter Soldier and Falcon, and there was only 6. So I don't know. We're maybe halfway through the season, maybe a third of the way through the season. Who knows? But
Yeah.
it's interesting so far. They do a lot in this episode to try to differentiate Sylvie from Loki. It's like I said, a little bit of confusion from on me just because it seems like this is a hugely different variant when it didn't sound
Mhm.
like that was how it was going to be, but maybe
Right.
they'll kind of bring us more up to speed on that. The immediately more pressing issues are that they are trapped on this planet together and they need to work together to find a way off because they both have the same goal, which is usurp the power of the timekeepers.
Right.
They
Mhm.
they
And
try to make a
we
last
don't really know Sylvie's full plan. I guess, yeah, to overthrow them or kill them or something.
yes.
But yeah.
So, yeah, you're right. They haven't gone too far into that other than it seems to be similar to what Loki's plan is in that he wants them gone. We're not quite sure if she's more of a hero character than Loki is though, because Loki just wants to be the ultimate god and ruler of the universe, right?
Yeah.
Maybe Sylvie's the same way. I'm not quite sure. Now,
He may even want to just bargain with them to let him rejoin the main universe
yeah,
or main
true. Who
timeline.
knows? The
But
sacred
yeah.
timeline.
Yeah.
But we end up in a scene where they try to make a last ditch effort for the Ark, which is the ship that Sylvie knows to have been destroyed on this moon in the sacred timeline. But because they're both variants, they hope that they can change the timeline and escape on the ship.
Right.
Spoilers, they don't. So during the course of this, there's some cool action scenes. There's some cool display of powers. Now, we've talked about already that Sylvie's powers as Enchantress seem to be mainly telepathic in nature.
Hmm.
She carries a sword that she doesn't manifest. She actually keeps like sheathed on her. Whereas
Hmm.
Loki, as we know, kind of summons everything
Yeah.
and then displays wildly powerful telekinetics too when he catches a building at one point,
Yeah.
which surprised me because we just haven't seen anything to that degree yet from
I know.
Loki
When
and
I saw that, I was
MCU.
like, wait, how'd that happen? What?
It
Because
made
I had.
it made me think that he had an Infinity Stone still. I thought,
Mm,
oh, he grabbed those things earlier. Does he have them now? And now that he's out of the TVA, he can use them because that would make sense if he had grabbed a time stone and held on to it. That might even be their escape plan from here. I don't know. We'll see about that, right? We'll see. But
mhm.
yeah, it ends. The episode ends with just nope. The Ark's destroyed still. They're stuck on the planet and they can, or on the moon, and they can actually see the planet exploding above them in what they're going to collide into and die with, supposedly. Now, obviously, the likelihood of that happening in this storyline is probably slim. But
I like that theory of Loki holding on to a
time stone.
time stone. Yeah, because that's a good way to escape right there.
Yeah,
You could say like,
particularly in a story about
yeah,
time travel, right? So I don't know.
exactly.
We'll see. We know that he did specifically pick up a time stone in the first episode in that in the drawer of Infinity Stones, because he's looking for the Tesseract, and he specifically picks up a time stone from that drawer.
That are
So
all over the place.
so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that's kind of what happens during this episode. And it leaves a few questions for us, a few things we want to talk about. But before we talk, I'd like to play for us and for the audience Michael's brief commentary to see kind of what he thought about the episode. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right.
Hey guys, sorry I couldn't make it today. Pre-scheduling conflict, but I'm going to go ahead and do my review for it anyway. I have a couple thoughts for it. Loki as a series in general, really love it. I really am enjoying what they're doing with the storyline and how it's moving the MCU forward as far as the universe of the MCU and not just specific storylines, kind of like how Captain America and the Winter Soldier and the WandaVision did. Those were kind of isolated incidents. This is really setting the precedent for what the MCU is going to be like moving forward. Is the TVA going to be involved in the rest of the series and with all the rest of the characters and development and everything moving forward? The episode that we are currently on was very character heavy. It was a very developmental episode as far as the evil or Lady Loki is concerned. Well, they're both evil, but Lady Loki is in this one. We get a little bit of an in-depth view about how she's going to be as a character. So that's really great. I really enjoyed the first two episodes, mostly because it was world building. It was introducing us to this new concept of the TVA. This is the first episode where it's not necessarily world building, it's more character development. And because of that, I thought this was probably the weakest of the episodes so far. It was still good, but it was the weakest as far as progression and my interest goes, because I'm really interested in the TVA and where it fits inside of this world. This episode specifically had a few Easter eggs in it, kind of really interesting things. For example, the line where Loki is inside of the train and has the martini glass or whatever glass it is and throws it down and says, "Another!" Right? That was the call out to the Thor smashing the beer bottle or mug in the first Thor when he's inside of the diner and smashes his down and says another. So I thought that was actually really interesting. So that is a little world building in and of itself. Is that just a common thing that happens on Asgard? Is that how they get more drinks? Because now we're seeing it in two separate instances. We get introduced to Sylvie. Sylvie is the character, the evil Loki that everyone was chasing over the past few episodes. We now get a little bit more insight into what she's about and what she's like, which is cool. It's a good thing that when that woman in the trailer was shooting those shotguns, that all they did was push people back. I haven't seen that type of technology before. And it seems like I'm just thankful that it did not do more damage than just push people back by 20 feet. So I thought that was pretty interesting. We also got to see an ability from Loki that I have never seen before. He had the ability to stop a falling building and push it back up. That is immense power and immense strength. Usually we see from the God of Mischief doing these little tricks and illusions, and I'm here, no, I'm there, and kind of fabricating things out of thin air like he did with the quill and the paper on the plane. But in this one, we got to see him move an entire building, and he just did a no! And so that was really interesting. I wonder if that's going to be something that comes about in the future again, because that was straight up like the Force. That was straight up Star Wars type of power. Anyway, I did like this episode. I think the series is extremely interesting. I really like the progression. This one, again, I think is probably the weakest episode because it's just character development, and I'm really interested in the universe and the storylines. So, so that was my take on this episode. Hopefully you guys can talk a little bit about the things that I brought up. Maybe you guys can make it a little bit more sense. We're going to get together. We're going to try to find a time that works for all of us. It's very difficult because we typically shoot on Tuesdays, but Wednesdays are busy. And so hopefully in the future we can find a time that works so we can all get together and talk about this in person, or at least on a Zoom call or Skype or however we're doing this. Anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I'm looking forward to watching this episode and hearing what you guys have to say about the things that I did not understand. All right, see ya.
All right.
All right. Well, that was crap.
Well,
worst review I've ever heard.
it's not hard
In
for me to
reference-
do Wednesdays. It's just hard for one person to do Wednesdays.
One
No,
person,
yeah.
that'd be Michael. How dare
Hopefully,
you reference Star Wars? He's the last person you should refer to.
reference Star Wars. Yeah, he didn't join any of our bad. Oh no, he did join the Bad Batch. Sorry. Yeah, you know what? He brings up a lot of points. He actually talked about some of the things we talked about already,
Yeah.
and I do agree with him on one major point of what he had brought up, which was, of the 3 episodes we've gotten so far, I think this one was the weakest. Not bad, but the weakest. And for many of the similar reasons that he brought up. Not because character development, I like character development, but kind of because the amount of time spent in conversation without character development. Because that's really the thing, is we didn't really learn too much about Sylvie.
Yeah.
Not really. And we didn't learn anything new about Loki. There was just a lot of, we're talking right now, not really about anything important. And a lot of what was happening was Loki was just trying to avoid bringing up the fact that he had broken the time travel device.
Well, that could have happened when he fell off the train, like he said, probably did. But to that point, yeah, it was a character development episode, and we want to find out all we can about Sylvie. And so far, the only thing we got from her is that she didn't know her mom, so that kind of punched a hole in our time theory of how this whole universe works.
Yeah, not the same strong relationship with the mother that Loki had anyways. And
but that's it.
They briefly talk about how, both of them have explored various types of romantic entanglements, but they've not found the right one. That's it. That's really about all that they cover with the characters, and that for some reason she doesn't want to be called Loki, she wants to be called Sylvie. Okay.
But yeah, it definitely left us with wanting more from Sylvie.
Yeah, definitely.
But it was also, I think, a good episode just because it revealed more about the TVA, the huge bombshell in that they're being lied to. These are actual people that work at TVA instead of creations of these gods, the timekeepers. And
no, that was definitely the big reveal. That was definitely the big reveal, and then it ended on a cliffhanger going into next week because we got to see how did they escape Lamentis.
Right.
Now, for me, all the questions that I have for you, or the things that the talking points that I have for you, are specifically about Sylvie. Do you have anything aside from Sylvie that maybe stuck out for you that you wanted to talk about?
Not really. I mean, I just mentioned them.
Yeah.
Just that, so she knew her mom only for a little bit, we assume as a child. But the interesting thing is that she's grown up to be roughly the same size as this Loki, right? That we know. And, if she's a true variant, they should be the exact same age or something like that.
Yeah.
But that means she's lived a full life. But she also mentioned that she was fighting the TVA her entire life. Now,
well, she said for years. Did she say her entire life?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, out of frustration, out of Loki, she's like, you just ruined the thing I've been fighting for my entire life, or something like that.
Because I remember her saying, I've spent years on this plan.
Yeah,
I don't remember my entire life.
Years on the plan. But yes, if you go back, she mentions, I've been fighting these guys my entire life.
Okay, that
which would make sense if, if she gets tugged out as a variant when she's like a 5-year-old or something.
Yeah, that actually makes more sense now, because I was thinking about that too. I was thinking she has this entire childhood of memories, and you have to think, if the TVA really is destroying any variant timelines immediately, they seem to be doing so pretty immediately. It wouldn't make sense that she had 600 years of different history than Loki.
Right. But the other way we can go with this, if our theory of this whole how time works out is wrong, is that there were multiverses during Loki's life,
And
and at
then the
some point
timekeepers
they
came
made
in
one,
and whittled it down to one. That makes sense
but
too. Okay.
within Loki's life.
Yeah, within sometime, I mean, it's hard to say recently because it's
Yeah.
time travel, so it's all relative.
Mhm.
That's a time travel joke. Yeah, but yeah, at some point they the only alternative is that they didn't go back to solidify a single line, and there is some point where they just cut off all lines, and then from that point forward they kept the single line.
Yeah.
So I don't know, who knows, but um it's possible though that just what we were told in the first episode was all a lie, because we already know the TVA lies about who these people are. It's possible just everything that was explained to us about the TVA is a lie and will be revealed to us what the truth is later. And maybe
Exactly.
there are multiverses and there's not one sacred timeline. Who knows?
Yeah. Or there were a bunch of multiverses, and just recently there's just been one timeline.
Yeah.
And this could be an effect of what the Avengers did in Endgame.
Yeah, it's true.
Like maybe they had to do this somehow, and who is they exactly, right?
Or this all formed because the time travel that the Avengers did somehow affected the timelines. It's possible that TVA's new. You're right. That's it. That's all a possibility too. But specifically with Sylvie. So you mentioned this, I think, when we kind of talked about some possible theories about Lady Loki, Sylvie from the previous episode, when you had mentioned the Enchantress, and that is essentially who they're setting this character up to be. Now, the history that they're giving this character is very different than the Enchantress in the comics. This is a variation of Loki. They've said that already, and she's dressed like Lady Loki from the comics.
Right.
So,
but keep in mind,
be.
We'll keep in mind first the late Enchantress from the comics. She's got a similar green garb with kind of spiky crown.
Spoiks.
Yeah, spoiks. And also I forgot what I was gonna say, so go for it.
Okay. No, you're right. It's not too different in clothing from the Enchantress, but that's because Loki creates the Enchantress in the comics. He creates her.
Right.
She's a human that believes that she's actually an Asgardian, and it's all a joke to Loki. She's actually nothing. All of her history is made up. She's an artificial human created by Loki in the comics. Right. And she starts out as a hero, eventually goes on to be a villain. In this
and that could be revealed later on, maybe. Future Loki creates the Enchantress, but that's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, see, I think they're kind of just combining characters in this specific show, which does lead me to believe that one of my theories may be wrong. So I told you in a previous episode that I thought maybe they were establishing Lady Loki to be a villain for Lady Thor, which has already been spoiled for us with production notes about the next movie, Thor: Love and Thunder. This is going to be Chris Hemsworth's last movie as Thor, and Jane Foster's character will carry on as the Thor after that, which is very similar and consistent with the comics. I thought that they might be introducing Lady Loki as the villain that'll carry forth as the new Loki after this.
Hey, it could still possibly be that way, only not as Loki.
But specifically because... Yeah, but specifically because she identifies as Sylvie, and because they seem to be combining the characters of Lady Loki and Sylvie, that's what has me thinking maybe they won't go that way now. But it is interesting to see. Now, Marvel has created new histories for canon characters in the MCU before, specifically Wanda and Pietro, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, right? They couldn't bring up that they were mutants, so it's an entirely new story and way of introducing those characters. And
they bought X-Men too late.
Yes, exactly. But also because, I mean, they are new characters. Scarlet Witch's powers in the MCU don't really match up with what her powers are in the comics. I mean, that connection to chaos magic that they just established during WandaVision is one thing, but how her powers work is not even consistent within the comics. In the comics,
Right.
she hexes people. In the movies, she like moves things with her mind, and that's pretty much what the powers are.
Yeah, she basically alters the probabilities in the comics,
Yes.
right? And but WandaVision did show her developing her powers like tenfold.
Yeah, but
Like
to become like an actual witch,
yeah,
which is still not really what Scarlet Witch does. Not really, right? Yeah, she can alter reality. They show in the X-Men comics, but because they've done that before, I don't think that they're against creating this new version of Enchantress that's actually an alternate version of Loki. It's close enough to the real thing that
right.
it could
Yeah,
work.
just nerds and dweebs like us will say, "Oh no, that's
not
what
right."
the Enchantress are." Yeah.
But I don't hate it. It's just interesting. It's just interesting.
I mean, and that's what like movies and Disney, it's typical of them to kind of mesh things together, but not quite as accurate as the comics or books that we read.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm. But overall, I'd say it's another good step forward for this show. But I might have to agree with Michael a little bit, just because the first two episodes were seeing the world of TVA. Said it before, Owen Wilson really brings a lot to the show.
Yes.
And
he was missed this episode. He was missed.
Yeah. I was just a little bit frustrated throughout this entire episode because I wanted to know more about Sylvie and her life, and they didn't give us a whole lot. But still, it's a good one in that it reveals that bombshell of TVA being a lie. So I'd give it a 7.5 in my book.
Dude, you hit it right on the head. You hit the nail right on the head. I was about to say 7.5 out of 10. This is a perfect C, which is not bad, right? Especially for an episode 3. They had given us 2 strong episodes. Heck, I think I gave a 9.5 to the last episode. This wasn't terrible. It was just a slowing in pace, and then for what they were trying to do with character development, I wanted more. That was really the main thing.
But isn't that what you want out of your viewers, to want more?
Yeah, that's true, I guess. But I wanted more in a way that would have left me satisfied, and this was leaving me in an unsatisfied mood. So the main things that I'm excited for, looking forward, of course, how they escape this planet.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit more about Sylvie and kind of what's going on with this universe, and how the variant status works with her. And then Loki, was that just a power of his to pick the building back up, or was that an Infinity Stone? That's the other thing I'm curious about. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that he had pocketed, because this is Loki. He pocketed the device controlling his own collar. When he has his hands on Infinity Stones, why would he put them back in the drawer? It doesn't make sense.
Well, he's got sticky fingers for those. the Tesseract.
And especially when the guy that has the drawer is like, we'll use it as paperweights. He's not exactly keeping a log of how many Infinity Stones he has.
He's going to grab all he can.
Yeah, to me, it would only make sense that Loki has, all of them. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. The only thing I'll add for exciting things to come is also the exposure of the true TVA and what they're all about.
Yeah, what are these timekeepers? He keeps referring to them as time lizards or space lizards. Are they space lizards? I want to see them.
Yeah.
I expect to see
and they were so close.
Time travel Godzilla. That's what I want to see.
Ooh, like it.
All right, guys.
Time traveling King Kong.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode discussion and review, and tune in next week for episode 4. Episode 4 next week, if we could coordinate this correctly, we may be dropping Thursday evening instead of Wednesday evening, hopefully to get Michael on as well. But expect it within 24 to 48 hours of when the actual episode drops still.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. And checking out.
Later.